Hi there, Mike from Greenway. Sometimes I get asked, what kind of special maintenance does an electric vehicle need? And so today I thought I'd go through that with you. So what I have in front of me today is the service and maintenance guide for a 2019 Nissan Leaf. And let's just go through that and see what it says. As I paged through it, the first time it asked me to replace something is after 3 years, 36 months, or 45,000 miles. So I'll get to that in a second. What do they want you to replace after 3 years? But we're all used to having our maintenance schedule, changing oil and that sort of thing on our vehicles. So what does an electric car need? Well, after 6 months or 8,000 miles, the standard maintenance is to first rotate your tires, which is good advice for any vehicle, and then inspect the following. So there's no replacements of anything. So inspect the axle and suspension, inspect the brake pads and rotors, inspect the drive shaft boots, inspect front suspension ball joints, inspect steering gear and linkage, and inspect the steering linkage ball joints. So again, it's not asking you to replace anything, so it is a little bit different, the wording that's being used compared to gas vehicles. Gas vehicle is going to say replace your oil, replace your filter, at least every time you go in for regular service. After 1 year, it does say replace the brake fluid on the vehicle and replace your in-cabin microfilter. That's your filter for the air that you breathe in the cabin. And then it also has all the same other things as the prior service, which was rotating tires, inspecting all that list of different items, including and additionally inspecting the charging port and generating an EV battery usage report. So that's a report that the Nissan dealer will run by plugging their scan tool into the car and generating a report on the health of the battery. So as we go forward then to 2 years, what we have again is replacing the brake fluid. Looks like they want us to do that once a year. Replacing the in-cabin microfilter again once a year, and then rotating the tires, and then also doing all the same inspections again without any replacements of any other components. Then after 3 years, it's the same as actually year two. They want us to actually replace the key fob battery, which actually that's new. So the vehicles have a key fob. There's a battery in the key fob. They're asking us to replace that proactively, I guess. I do know that when the car detects that the battery is low in the key fob, it displays on the screen of the car and says your key fob battery is low. So I would probably skip replacing the battery until I get that message saying my battery is actually low. And then they want you to replace the cabin filter, rotate the tires, and then inspect those same parts again. So that's after 3 years. 4 years, no change there. Replace the brake fluid, replace the cabin filter, rotate the tires, and inspect all those other components we were talking about. So it's really a simplified maintenance for the electric vehicles is I guess what I'm trying to say. In a gas vehicle, I'm sure if you familiar with carrying and taking care of one of those, doing the maintenance on those, at some point you're going to be replacing spark plugs or perhaps spark plug wires. You're for sure going to need to replace the oil and the oil filter on a regular basis. Sometimes they will call out after some period of time or some mileage. You'll need to replace the transmission oil as well, and there's no that doesn't need to be done on the electric vehicle. Also, you'll need to replace eventually after maybe 50, 60,000 miles, or some of them go as not long as 90,000 miles. A timing belt, if the vehicle has a timing belt, some of them have a chain. And so those are fairly major services, and if you've had those done before, they're quite expensive. In addition to that, of course, they will say to also, as Nissan did for their Nissan Leaf, to replace the cabin filter and replace your brake fluid and do those types of things. So I guess overall the car is not maintenance free, but it is maintenance reduced. There's going to be certain things that will wear out eventually. Of course, your tires will eventually wear out. They don't last forever. And also your brakes may wear out. Although, if you think of brakes, though, on the electric vehicle, you might have heard of something called regenerative braking. That means when you're slowing down, it's actually recharging the battery and it's using the motor, the electric motor, to slow the vehicle down. So it's not going to be using the brake pads as much. So the brakes may not need to be replaced as much. And I know sometimes with the higher mileage electric vehicles, there's people that have their original brakes after, over 100,000 or 150,000 miles on the vehicle. Again, there's also not going to be any need to do any antifreeze replacement, although further on in this book, after 15 years, it does recommend you replace the coolant in the inverter system, but there's no regular routine antifreeze replacements in the vehicle. So in terms of complexity of maintaining it, it is a little bit simpler, and for that reason it's also less expensive as well because of that. So you'll not need to be visiting your service department as often, and in this case here it's once per year is what it's recommending. And if the cabin filter is something you feel comfortable replacing, it's usually fairly easy to do that. Then that's something that you can do on your own, as well as rotating your tires, as well as the other item that they had listed. And then replacing the brake fluid is something also that they ask you to do from time to time. And handy people will do that at home, or you can also get the dealer to do that. The brake fluid will start to show its age when your brake pedal starts to get spongy, so you'd want to change the brake fluid at that time. Anyway, just to give you some idea of what it is to maintain an electric vehicle, there's overall generally less moving parts and there's less complexity to it. There's a little bit more on the circuit board side, it's a little bit more electronics, but then a lot less moving parts. The motor has just one moving part. There's just inside the motor one moving part, and versus a gas engine, it has many moving parts inside that are lubricated by oil. So the vehicle is simpler and easier to maintain in that way. Someone may say, well, you forgot to mention the battery. That the battery needs to be replaced, and I know I've mentioned in other videos that the idea of replacing the battery, the batteries are really intended to last the life of the vehicle. Just like in a gas car, your gas engine is intended to last the life of the vehicle. Have you ever replaced a gas car or engine in a gas car? Maybe, but it's really expensive, so you may not choose to do that if you have a 10-year-old vehicle and needs a new engine. Similar to an electric vehicle. We should take a look at my 10-year-old electric vehicle, and it's still running fine, doesn't need a new battery replacement at all. But it's not something that normally would need to be replaced. There is something that it didn't mention in what I've read there is the 12-volt battery. There is a separate 12-volt battery on the electric vehicles, most if not all of them. And that often is a lead acid battery. Some of them will have a AGM or some other chemistry of a battery, but in the most of them it's a lead acid battery, which needs to be replaced. It will start to fail after a certain number of years. They usually last at least 5 years, sometimes 6, 7, 8 years, but eventually those need to be replaced. The good news is you can buy them at your local parts store, so they're not generally specialty batteries, and you can find them fairly readily, and they're as easy to replace as it would be in a gas vehicle. So there is, of course, 2 terminals, positive and negative. Then you'll have some tie downs, and depending on where it's located in the vehicle, many of them are located in a convenient spot, but some of them do take a bit of extra time to remove. Just a little hint there, if you do have an electric vehicle that's 5 to 7 to 8 years old, if it does start doing some weird things to you, you get some weird lights on the dash, you might want to check your 12-volt battery. It may be low, may not be holding its charge anymore and may not be doing its job that it needs to do to maintain the battery, the car's computers, or to flip relays electronically after you've started the car. So that's some comments on electric vehicle maintenance. It's generally pretty simple, but I'd like to hear more from you as well. Do you have an electric vehicle, and have you had to do any maintenance, either unplanned maintenance? I guess the planned maintenance wouldn't be a surprise, but if you've had unplanned maintenance, I'd like to hear about it. Let's leave it in the comments, and let's see what the group has to share there. So thanks very much for watching the video. If you found it helpful or informative, I hope you can give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for future similar videos. Thanks very much, and have a great day.